The spiral is my favourite shape in wire, and I'm going to show you a very simple necklace that I love to make. I'm using 2mm gauge aluminium wire, so it's really chunky. It's a big statement piece. And I'm starting off by making a small link right at the very end, and I'm not cutting the wire off the spool as yet. I'm just going to trim the end because it's a bit messed up and a bit tuned. Just trim that end so that I can start making the spiral around that. So once I've got it nicely trimmed, I'll bring it round so it touches the rest of the wire and then continue coiling the wire around itself, keeping it tight to start with, and then opening up a small gap. So you should do this very slowly because you want the wire to flow and curl rather than have any kinks in it. So this is quite a heavy duty wire, and so you want to take it slowly and bring it round in tiny little movements. Don't go too fast with this. So as you see, I'm holding the wire further down, not near the coil, and that way it gives it a chance to flow and bend around. Wire does want to spiral. It doesn't want to go into angular bends. So you can use your fingers when it gets to a certain size, and it will be easier to work with. And of course, you can make this the size that you want. I just happen to like big chunky statement pieces, so I'm going to go really big with this one. So just a bit bigger to get this like a tribal piece, one of those sort of African tribal necklaces. That's what I want, the feel and the look of it. So I'll cut it off here, and then it might need a little bit of adjusting because it's so big, so you can pull it around a bit, and that work hardens it too. And then you want to make the top suspension link. Now I'm going to make mine really big, so I'm using my bail maker pliers because I want to put it on a big thick braid or cord, because the whole thing is a chunky looking necklace. So I'm going to turn that top suspension link 90 degrees to the spiral, and the cord will hang then through, or the ribbon, or whatever you're going to put it on. But obviously you don't have to follow my lead. You can make this much smaller. It works as a small necklace as well. So I'm using 0.4 now because there's one weakness in the spiral, especially if you're making it this size. And so I'm just cutting off a little piece of 0.4 gauge wire so that I can just do a little bit of stitching from the last of the spirals up to the top outer edge of the spiral, because I want to join those two so that the whole thing can't sort of open up and get caught and split open and totally misshape. So I'm just putting a tiny little stitch of wire in there. It's like it would be where I would solder it if I was making it out of sterling silver, and it will just hold the whole piece together, because if you don't do that, it could just catch on something and open up. Obviously, if it's a smaller piece, you wouldn't need to do that, but something this size, you just need to stabilize it a bit. So you can cut off the end, or because the whole project and tutorial is about spirals, I'm just going to spiral this tiny little extension or projecting wire all the way up to where I've made the binding, and then I can flatten it on top of the binding, and it just adds another little decorative detail, I suppose. So it's up to you. Again, there are no rules. This is the way I do it, but you can do it any way you wish. Right, so now we're going to put it on a chunky cord. I've got this lovely, I think it's a macrame yarn that I found online, and I wanted something really chunky. I've put tape on the ends so that it doesn't fray, and now I'm going to make the cord ends. Now you can make or buy cord ends to glue over, but equally you can make your own. So I'm making them with 1.6mm aluminium wire, and I'm using my bail makers again because I want to find something that is roughly the same size to go over that tape at the end of my cord. So I'm just going to roll a coil that fits over the cord end. So I'm just going to roll and roll and roll to make this coil, just like you would make jump rings. You're just creating an even shaped coil. If you don't have bail makers, you could use a pencil or a pen or any sort of cylindrical mandrel that you can wrap the wire around. Something that is just a bit bigger so that the cord can fit or sit inside it. So like a little tunnel. So I think that's about long enough, it's just under an inch. And then I'm going to cut it off the spool, leaving a tail. And then I'm going to create a circle, again, using the end of my round nose pliers. I'm going to create a link or a circle at the end. And then I'm going to spiral that in towards the top of the coil, but at right angles to the top of the coil. So it becomes a sort of a top end. You can see it flattens and covers it, and that is the top of my cord end. And all I need to do now is pull out the center circle that I made right in the beginning and just twist it 90 degrees to the rest of the coil, and that's my link that I can connect my my fastener, or whatever you're going to make, fish hook, or your the end of the eye of the fastener, whatever it is, at the end of your necklace. So you make 2 of those, and then those are going to go on to the end of the cord. So we'll need a little bit of glue, so whatever hypo cement or E6000 or whatever you've got to hand, line the whole of the coils, so the inside of those coils, with the glue. Be generous, because you don't want this to fall off. I know aluminium is incredibly light, so you won't have any weight on this, but you still want them to stay there for posterity. And then once you've got the glue into the coils, you want to push the cord ends in and just sort of twist them in. So twist and twist and push them in so that they sit right deep inside the whole of that coil. And that will be the way you can link on your fastener. And then you just obviously let that dry for a bit so that it doesn't come off. And the other thing you can do is just squeeze the very, very last coil. Just use the tips of your chain nose pliers to tighten the last coil of that coil. Just tighten and tighten it, and then just push it in to the coil, and that also acts as a securing device, so that it can never, it's got the glue and it's got that sort of crimped bit of coil around the cord. So if you do that to both ends, you won't have any trouble losing the piece. Now, I should have said, before putting on those 2 ends, you should slide on your pendant, but luckily I'm able to open this pendant because it's a jump ring. So, but if you'd made a wrap loop, you would have had to slide it on before you put your cord ends, and then link your fastener to the very end. And you'll find a tutorial on making fasteners. Now, you could put something in the middle, so you could leave it like that, but I'm just going to show you what I will do. I'm just going to make another big sort of jump ring, or a circular link that will fit around. I've got a cabochon pearl here, so a flat back cabochon pearl, and I'm just making this jump ring or circle of wire to fit around it to look like a fake setting. It'll just set it off a bit more. But equally, I could just glue that flat pearl to the center of my spiral. So once you've got that, you can just, make sure it fits. I'm just trimming it again. It needs to be a tiny bit smaller so there's no gap around the bead. And then you can glue that into place. You can also texture hammer it and make it look, here I've got mine textured and I've glued it on, and that's the end of the tutorial. So you can do it in different colored wires. Just have fun playing with this very, very simple shape.